Hey there, fellow pwners. Welcome to MasterofPwnage's Art of Total War. Today we're going to be discussing the most unanimously agreed upon difficult unit to use, the Javelin men. When I first started making this video, I was really irritated because I hated using Javelin men previous to this. But it took me a long time to put this video together to gather up all the footage I needed. And in the process, I must have played them for about 10 hours, and I've completely fallen in love and realized that they are very effective if you use them right. The difficulty is that they're completely different than other units, so to use them right, you have to actually use them and go through that terrible learning curve. So let's get started with their strengths and talk about what makes them amazing. If you look at the stats of the Javelin men and you compare them to the other ranged units in the game, they have a massive amount of damage output. The trick is, how do you use that damage output without getting yourself hurt because of how short their range is? So this leads us to our first strength, ambushing. Now, ambushing means to surprise the enemy with an attack that hopefully decimates them before they have time to recover, and that's what we're going to go over here. Instead of shooting at the enemy as soon as they're within range, wait to lure them in just a little bit further, and then start hitting them, because that makes them have a choice. They're already almost halfway to you. Do they continue to you and hope you don't run, or do they turn around and run the other way and take the same amount of damage on the way back? So it really puts them in a pickle. You see some of these guys decide to turn and run, and they lose about half their units in the process. The other guy with his 3 spear units just decides to charge forward, in which case there's much more than he expects. We've got my Javelin men, we got some artillery shooting in, and we've got some swordsmen waiting to slam into him. So this guy made a rough decision. He stuck with it though. He kind of felt committed. He couldn't fold. So we killed him. This leads us into our next very obvious strength, and that is the amount of damage that they do to the back of an enemy. Now, this is one that almost all ranged units have, but with Javelin men it's even more devastating because of the amount of damage output they have. It's just absolutely insane. As soon as they turn their back, make sure you're throwing javelins, because it will just decimate them. Pikemen are exceptionally weak to Javelin men because they are slow moving, and the Javelin just do so much damage that by the time they actually reach them, the short range of the Javelins doesn't even matter. It just will annihilate them before they're able to get to you, if they decide to even move at all. You'll see here this guy decided to charge and died in the process. This next one, the guy kind of decided to charge, didn't know if he wanted to commit, then committed way too late. This next video is a good example of two things, skirmishing and the ability that Javelin men have against spearmen. Spearmen are good units, they have big shields, but when they're surrounded by javelins that are properly skirmishing, their shields mean absolutely nothing. You can see here that I lure him down the hill with some of my Javelin units, and there's another guy with archers that's kind of lure him down there as well. And then there's Javelin's position behind him to start throwing at him. As soon as he turns towards those guys, we're hitting him from both sides, and there's just nothing he can do. It's pretty much an instant death for him. Now, this is a very repeatable process. You could just do it over and over and over again. Here's some quick videos just showing you how repeatable this process is. And in the same effect, you do the exact same thing to swordsmen as well. The important thing to remember with Javelin men, and this is definitely a strength and a weakness in a way, they're very, very, very powerful, but you have to macro with them. You have to be constantly micromanaging your 3 units to make sure that they stay alive, keep their distance from the enemy, and you want to spread them out as you're falling back to put more and more distance between at least 2 of your units from the one they're chasing. That way you can keep them trying to chase with that one unit while your other 2 are constantly barraging them with javelins, because they will eventually die in the process of chasing you, and they're wasting you're wasting the enemy's time in a massively large amount in doing this too, because you're drawing out those units' time of chase instead of letting them add points to the game. It's very, very effective, guys, and these Javelin men are better at it than anybody else. A lot of times when the enemy encounters slingers or archers, they just run the other way because their range is so far. When they encounter Javelin men, they feel like they're so close that they can catch you, so they'll continue to chase when they wouldn't with an archer or a javelin, or with an archer or a slinger. It's a very, very strong strength for these guys. This is where they shine the best. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get much artillery video because the cavalry in all my games was getting to it before me. But just know that they are strong against artillery, and the main reason being is that artillery for the other ranged units locks on to you pretty easily when you're in the fog of war because they can see your javelins or your arrows and slings, or I guess rocks, flying from, they fly a distance, so it's easy to see those tracers or those contrails in the back of them. With javelins, they don't go as far, so it's harder for the artillery to get an easy target on you. And then on top of that, once you actually reach them, the javelins have so much damage output that it takes about one throw from all three to completely just annihilate them to where they don't even exist anymore. So from here we're going to move on to weaknesses. Now, a lot of the weaknesses of the Javelin unit have to be with how different they are to play, but as far as actual units go, here we go. There are really two huge weaknesses to Javelin men, and that is other ranged units such as archers and slingers, because they will outrange you. So before you're able to actually hit them, they will decimate about half to 3/4 of your unit before you actually fully engage them. You can see here that by the time I lobbed off 3 javelins from each of my units, they were all 3 decimated except for 1. So just kind of try to avoid them. If you start taking fire, kind of go the other way unless you have some very specific advantage over them that the enemy doesn't know about. Running into slingers is going to be a much more rare occurrence with Javelin men because for the most part, slingers are in an off tier for every time there's a Javelin man. There are some slingers in the same tier as Javelin men, but not very often. The next big weakness is the one that I'm sure everybody's been anticipating and everybody already knows the answer to. It is the cavalrymen. Cavalry will decimate almost every time they contact you, unless there's only like 2 or 3 of the horses left when they actually make impact. Just avoid them when possible. The good news is that your Javelin men are better than other units at fighting them off, so you will last a little bit longer in a melee against cavalry, and you will take less losses in a charge than other units, and that's because you have more armor, so you're able to just last a little bit longer in that melee. I still don't recommend trying to get into a melee with cavalry, like I said before in the other videos, that is unless there's so few of them left that overwhelming them with a charge of your own or a counter charge will be effective at just eliminating them almost instantly due to a morale drop. That does bring us to the end of this video, guys. I do appreciate your time as always, and if you enjoyed the video, please subscribe so you do get the update the next video that comes out. All right, catch you next time. And as always, bone on.